My Gavanan Melonin, and well met indeed. I am Arakir Galajirathan, the head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer, and welcome to the first post version 2.2 developer diary. And of course, this is all about the few minor changes that have taken place since version 2.2 released a couple of months back, and of course, Gundabad. And here we are. We will start with Gundabad and dive right in. But before I do that, disclaimer. Everything about Gundabad is still subject to change. I'm merely showing you the developer diaries, as always, so that you can see the progress that we make behind the scenes and for the changes that are going to come in the future. So this is the kind of first draft of Gundabad, if you will. There are still some tweaks, and there's still a lot of work to be done for them, and there are tweaks and things that will change. But this is just to show you where we are at the moment. One such tweak, of course, is the fact that at the moment there's no sound. Or there's no music, and that's because in the music file, Gundabad don't yet exist, so the game doesn't play any music for them. So little things like that. But so here is Gundabad. This is their proposed starting location, owning Gundabad, Danes Halls, and Rakyaberg, which used to be Rebel. In the south, Goblin Town is held by no one, and instead will soon have a large Goblin garrison. Zagkala will have the same, so that there is a clear break between the two nations, and two of the more wealthy provinces are stripped from the Misty Mountains' hands. We'll cover them slightly more in a moment. So, Gundabad itself, the capital, of course, will be Gundabad, where your faction leader, Warlord Muzul, resides. He just looks like that. They will look orcish. That is a core concept. But showing you here, this is the banner of Gundabad, the idea taken from black goldfish to represent the kind of odd gatehouse-like feature that is shown in the Hobbit films and is even present on the strategy model there by the Elite Dwarf. And it is also their new icon. The colouring that we've gone for, because as you will see if I hover over things, the demonym for them, or the name, the identifier is Snow Orc. So this is the Snow Orc faction leader, this is a Snow Orc village, this is a Snow Orc citadel. If we were to have a fort somewhere in our lands, it would be a Snow Orc fort, there it is. And so to keep up with the kind of light and white theme, they are the second faction in the game to have white colouring, which I quite like, although it's slightly off-white, as you can see. More a kind of dull, a light greyish colouring. But the outline, as you will note, is purple. Purple being a very underrepresented colour, with only the... I keep wanting to call them Byzantium, because that's the name in the files. Dorwinian are obviously purple, but that now colour is shared with Gundabad around the edges, and is the symbol, the colour that you will see on their banners, so the gates are purple. On their flags, as you'll note there, and as you'll note there, it's red in the centre with the purple again for the main flag. Diplomatically speaking, they're allied to the Goblins of Moria and the remnants of Angmar. This brings us on to another point, a minor one. The Misty Mountains are now called the Goblins of Moria. The Orcs of Gundabad are having that name. And if you were to hover over Goblin items, they are now called as such. Goblin Town, if you pardon the pun. Goblin General, Goblin Capital, Goblin Fort, Goblin etc. You are being attacked by an army of goblins. Whereas in the north, it will now say you are being attacked by an army of Snow Orcs, which I think is cool. Your faction heir for the Snow Orcs is Marauder Chief Glugnak, and he is in Danes Halls. That is the name of your heir, Marauder Chief, and the name of your faction leader will be Warlord whatever. And finally, you get a third general who has a random picture. It'll be different in everyone's game, and he is called Hagfak. And he resides over here with the Gundabad Warlord Guard, the new bodyguard. But again, showing that we're still in the phases of creating this faction. The UI is not yet complete. However, I think the description may have been changed. And now the chieftains, warlords, and marauder captains of the peak guarded by the finest of the finest. Yeah. There will be a battle map for half of this video, and there'll be some cool things to show you over there as well. But we're just dealing with the campaign map first of all. So anyway, so that is Gundabad. They have the same, at the moment, victory conditions as the Goblins of Moria, except they need to hold Gundabad, not Moria, and it is then 40 regions. And they start at war with the Vale of Anduin and the dwarves of Erebor. You will note, though, that the goblins of Moria now start at war with the Northern Dunedain, the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, and the realm of Imladris, but not Anduin, not Lothlorien, not Erebor, not the Woodland Realm. So the goblins, the plan, the hope, the aim is to make the goblins go west. Let Sharwoods take you there, because they're going to cross the river here, the Bruinen, and they are going to push inland. That is the hope. If you play... I'll get onto that in a moment. Sorry, I'm getting all over the place. So we want the goblins to go west, so we've made sure that they're not at war with the people in the east. And indeed, they don't even border these people over here unless they take Zag-Kala, which will have a large garrison to try and halt that. So that's the plan. What I was going to say was, if you play as the Anduin or you play as Imladris, then the goblins get Zag-Kala and Goblin Town in the turn 1 auto expansion. Because without the goblins getting those two things, Anduin and Imladris may become way too simple. So they do retain those. Now, Goblin Town is a difficult one, because of course Goblin Town is the capital of the goblins and the orcs, and the main city in the mountains at the time of The Hobbit, which takes place around 70 years before the War of the Ring. So there was a big suggestion, and it's even called Goblin Town, that the goblins should own Goblin Town. But it is much too far north for our plans to try and make them go west. Now, Moria, of course, them being from Moria, works perfectly. So the premise that we're going with here is that there are now actually 3 tribes or 3 nations in the Misty Mountains, but you can only play as 2 of them. So the plan, or the goal, is to have Gundabad is one faction. They come from Gundabad. Goblin Town is a second faction that owns both Goblin Town and Zag-Kala. And we will set up an independent rebel nation, which is something some of you may know, whereby when you hover over it, you can see there that it says Orc Marauders. Well, we should be able to change that to say Goblins of Goblin Town, or just even Goblin Town. So these 2 would be a sub-rebel faction, and they will have large goblin armies defending both of them, but you can't play as them. And then the third one are the Goblins of Moria, a distinct faction from the Goblins of Goblin Town. That's the plan. So Gundabad is hopefully going to go east and south into the Anduin, into the forest, and into the lands around the Lonely Mountain. So that's the goal. Otherwise, at the moment, nothing really else on the campaign map to talk about Gundabad. They don't have any recruitment set up yet, and their buildings, they have got buildings, but obviously they're just standard orcish. We need to create a unique structure for Gundabad, and I would happily take suggestions, because of course no one knows anything about Gundabad. We had to make up the ice tower for Khan Dum, so we could do with something in Gundabad, so feel free to pop in your suggestions in the comments about what unique building you would want in Gundabad. It will be where their elite Gundabad guard come from, it will be where your diplomat comes from, and it will just be one of those useful, unique buildings that everyone has in their capital. Dane's Halls does not need a unique building and won't have one. Don't worry about that. Obviously, even their garrisons haven't even been set up yet, so we've got work to go. But before we swap over to the battle map and see what units have been created for them thus far, there are a few other tweaks I just wanted to mention that don't relate to Gundabad. Number 1 is that boats can no longer be recruited in the ports of Western Osgiliath, Eastern Osgiliath, Caer Andros, Henethanan, and Calenhad and Gelebrin, because boats can't get north of the Falls of Rauros and they can't get south of the Bridge of Osgiliath. So Gondor would often train boats that just sit in this bit of river here, wasting money. And so they can no longer be trained in this bit of river here. If you can, however, get mercenary boats, which the AI never does. But if you want to, for whatever reason, sail troops across this river rather than use the crossing, you'll have to get a mercenary boat. Although I should just write down Caer Andros, because I don't think I set that one to work. I don't think I set that one up. It's such a small province, it's easy to overlook. Oh, hold on. No, I don't need to. It doesn't even have a port, does it? No, it's too small to have a port, so the game doesn't generate one. Anyway, so ignore me there. Right, so you can't get boats around there. The second is that Breland, the upper tier building that recruits their mercenary units, that has now been, its requirement has been lowered, so you will be able to build it in Bree. Because many of you will have known that when you side with the mercenaries, Bree unfortunately couldn't actually build the highest tier mercenary training centre because Bree can't upgrade, because otherwise then you'd lose the unique settlement design. So instead, the mercenary building has been lowered in its requirement, and now Bree will be able to build it, which is good. Another thing, RK has gone around the map and fixed almost every broken custom settlement. There are too many to name, so I'll point out the major ones. Number one is that you may have recalled from my Ardenayim videos that the wild men villages, such as Rakuberg, the AI would never sally out of them. So you would always be able to just stand on the edges and shoot them until they died. Whereas now they will sally out. So when you attack a village, if you try and shoot the enemy, they will rally out and attack you. The second thing, or another interesting point, you may have noticed in Gundabad here, RK has added scorched terrain around the mountain itself, so that it no longer kind of just sits on a green field. It now blends into the terrain a bit better. Additionally, certain other places like Ostenethil have been edited to blend into the map a little bit better and has had certain fixes. Thorin's Halls has had fixes and it blends into the map a little better as well. And something that's very cool is that if you fight a night battle now in most custom dwarven settlements and in the city of Bree, there will be lights on the battle map in the buildings, which is cool. It just shows a sign of life, which previously was not there. Another major battle map, it's not that major, but it was a problem. This bridge battle here used to be unplayable, but it is now playable. So you can now defend Eastern Moria if you're playing as Khazad-dûm. You can defend on that bridge there, giving yourself a little leg up from the forces of the north, who now don't threaten you, in fact. We should probably make the goblins take Zagkala and Goblin Town if you're Khazad-dûm as well. I didn't think of that. Need to do that one. KD, Goblins, Goblin Town. Sorry, I should cut these out, really. I shouldn't really just say it out loud when I'm writing things down. But there we are. So that's the campaign map. Of course, the biggest change being the arrival of Gundabad. And that is where they will be, up in the north there. Happy as Larry. Ticking along quite nicely. But now we'll jump over to the battle map, and I will first of all show you the various miscellaneous changes, and then we will look at the so far created roster for Gundabad. So do stay tuned. Welcome then to the battle map side, and as I say, I've got some changes from Erebor, Goblins, Dunland and Enedwaith to show you before we dive into the Gundabad roster. So starting off with Erebor, I can't remember if I showed these in the Dwarven Overhaul change or not, I'm afraid. And if I did, I am terribly sorry. But it was very low down on the changelog list, and I'm not sure that these made it into the overview Dwarven Overhaul video. So, first thing to note is, yes, Hummingbird's little submod, the Dwarven Overhaul project, will be standard gameplay in the next version of Divide and Conquer. So, if you haven't seen that video or that overview or that mod, go and have a look at those. If I remember, I'll pop that video's developer diary in the little 3 that pop up at the end. But I almost certainly won't remember to do that. Anyway, the Blacklock engineers were given a new design, and if this wasn't that video, I am sorry, but even if it was, they look amazing, so it's cool to re-show them. And like all of the other Oricani units, they now have a bit of an eastern theme to them to match their eastern homeland, and so those are the new Blacklock engineers, which I just wanted to show you. I should say that the next version of Divide and Conquer at the moment is likely to be a patch and not a full re-release. So when we just feel like Gundabad's in a good position, we will just probably go ahead and release a patch that includes Gundabad. So it'll be a very simple installation process and no troubles there. Anyway, on to then the wargs. We have taken the warg model from Reforged that is a considerable improvement over the 2 previous warg models that we had. You will note that it's very similar to the Third Age Total Wars model, except it is smaller and nowhere near as bulky, and it just doesn't look like I don't know, an idiot's version of a warg. It looks a lot more aggressive and more warg-like. But it doesn't end there, because Reforged, in their infinite wisdom, they added an armoured version, which is very cool, and Bolg's champions ride it, now completing their design to make them look wonderful. This is the only current change to the Goblins of Moria, I should say. Other than, of course, getting new name, getting new names on the campaign map, getting a new starting location and a new kind of facing direction, there are no changes to their roster. So this little visual design of these wargs getting this armoured headset is the only visual change. And there's the other warg there. But keep the wargs in the back of your mind for a moment, because they're going to crop up again in a second, but in a different way. Right, and then we come over to Dunland. The first change is that what was their early tier spear and shield unit, the Dunlanding Warband, have been turned into a pike unit to better reflect the fact that Dunland's ancient enemies are all cavalrymen. They would go to war with pikes. It is natural. Beast Slayers have lost their pikes, although they keep the same model, but it is now used as a spear and a shield and no longer a pike. So the pikers have come in a bit earlier, and the old pike archer hybrid is now just a spear and shield unit. So that's Dunland. Over then on to, I believe, Enedwaith. Indeed. So 2 changes for Enedwaith. Number 1, you will note that they used to have a late game pike unit called Moot Pikemen. Well, they are now called Minhiriath Berserkers, and they are now a late game monster attack unit. And here they all are for you. I can't show you their stats, I'm afraid, because I'm too far away, because my army's all the way over there. But Minhiriath Berserkers have replaced Moot Pikemen in Enedwaith's late game roster. Additionally, to further compound the fact that they are the Javelin Nation, the River Elders, one of your mainstream spear and shield elite units, elite in inverted commas, now have a javelin before they pull their spear out. If you'll pardon the terribly sexual overtones there. They have a javelin first, and then they equip spear and shield for the fight thereafter. So another javelin unit to add to the already impressive javelin roster. And I think you'll agree, the Minhiriath Berserkers look very cool. They look like a shade down from Bjornings, which is good, but they look like a shade up from the Enedwaith early tier Berserker, the Grey Flood Axeman. So a very cool looking unit there. And finally then we come to Gundabad. Now there are some Silver Surfers that are already popping out of the display there, as you can see, because rather than give them Angmar's flag or just wait till Hummingbird creates their own flag. So there is a couple of Silver Surfers, but do bear with it. So their main middle tier roster. Now none of these units have got their stats yet, except for this unit here. So you won't be seeing any stats in this episode, but this is purely for visuals. So the first 2 mainstream units you're going to recruit are the Snow Orcs. Snow Orc Raiders on the left and Spearmen on the right. You will note that they have paler skin than any other Orc factions units. They have wolf skin heads, and some have bear skin headrests. Headrests? That's not what I mean, is it? Headdresses. Headdrests. No, that's not a word. Anyway, they've got bears and wolves on their heads. They've got furs as well, obviously, and their colour palette is just one of a slightly lighter tone. They aren't just brown and black like every other Orc faction. But otherwise they are very Orc-like, very ramshackle design. There's a lot going on. It's almost an assault of your eyes, really. There's not the refined quality of other more military nations. The stats of the Gundabad army are going to be very high, but they are going to be smaller in battalion sizes, they are going to take longer to train, they are going to cost a lot, and they will play like a dwarven nation and not like an orcish nation. But what they will have is a high attack. Where the dwarves have high armour, these will have an insane attack. But anyway, the next tier up are the famed Black Shield Warband and Black Shield Warriors. Now, notably, they have... Oh, when you look at them in one direction, they actually move. And then when you change back, they stop again. Anyway, they have black shields, as you might expect. And otherwise, then, they have this kind of heavy-ish armour design, but with some skin showing throughout. And again, that pale skin denoting that they are the Snow Orcs. There are furs present on their armours as well, living in the cold north, and they're just pretty cool. And there's their one-handed equivalent, the Black Shield Warriors, wielding axes, glaives, this kind of thing here, if that's called a glaive, I'm not really sure what that is, and just a very aggressive unit. Then this is a unit that I think most people are going to absolutely love, and it is currently my definitely outstanding favourite, and these are Orc Avengers. And what you may notice straight away is that they're wearing Dwarven armour. And that is very much the key concept here. This is an Orcish unit that has scavenged Dwarven armour from the ruins of Dwarven settlements. So they will only be available in Dwarven settlements. So Danes Halls, Erebor, Zagkala, the Morias, places like that. Gundabad, Ered Luin, those kind of places. Or probably not Gundabad, because the dwarves have not lived there for so long they wouldn't have any Dwarven armour left. But and they just look so good. This the Orcish version of this Dwarven armour looks very good. And you'll note, obviously, there are Orcish heads popping out through the helmets here, there, and everywhere. And they've got a two-handed axe. They are armour-piercing, and they are going to be brutal in battle. Very good unit. Standing next to them are your Bodyguards. These are the Gundabad Warlord Guard. It should probably be Warlord's Guard, although there's probably going to be a new name created for them, so I wouldn't worry too much about the names. But these are the Bodyguard unit. They are not just clones of the Gundabad Guard. They are their own design. So your Bodyguard is its own thing. And that's them standing there. Now, as I say, a lot of this is subject to change, but if you've got any thoughts on some of these units, then do put them down there. I know that Hummingbird flicks through the comments, especially on Developer Diaries, and if he sees anything he likes, he'll definitely act on it. So if you think of anything that you think, oh, that would look really good, or I think you should do this, that, or the other, just suggest it. The worst that we can do is say no. So if you do think of anything, do let us know. Now, these are the two Orc Archer units for the forces of Gundabad, and they are the Black Shield Archers and Snow Orc Scouts, although obviously they're the other way round. And what we've gone for here with Gundabad is basically this is going to be an army of elite warriors. Their stats are going to be much better than they should be at every stage. And their archers are no different. In fact, what we have gone for is the Gundabad archers will be the best Orcish archers in the game. They will even have human level accuracy. So they really will be the best Orcish archers that you can get. Really playing on Gundabad's elite warrior society. So whereas the Goblins of Moria really focus on just sheer trash, but bloody loads of it, Gundabad are going to focus on not very many units, but they're going to be very good. And that's the same theme there. Their major weakness will be, and is present already here, that some of you will be catching on to, they're only going to have one cavalry unit. Very much like an Orcish Dwarven nation. There's not going to be much cavalry choice. And even though their archers are going to be good, there's still only two of them. So, still playing on the Orcish infantry theme. Now, the wargs are here, and I wanted to just show you those. A keen-eyed amongst you will already be guessing exactly why these wargs are present, because you will note that they are not brown. They are white and light grey, reflecting again that Gundabad comes from the cold, frozen north. And their wargs even reflect that. So have a look at those wargs. They're white and light grey, as I say. And if we just shoot back over to the Misty Mountains, you'll note that they are all brown. So even on the battlefield, because I haven't done any sprites yet, so that's why you couldn't see the white wargs when it loads the sprites, they all change to brown. That's because none of these units have any sprites yet. So that secondary layer of visuals that you can just see popping into existence there, that lower quality one, those are the sprites. And none of those have been generated yet, so they'll all be incorrect. But anyway, so there's the wargs. They are the same warg that Isengard gets, and they are the same in stats. The Gundabad Guard will be boosted to be a very elite unit, unbelievably so. What will be up there as one of the best infantry units, bar none. Well, bar dwarves and elves, but they will only come from Gundabad, and again, they'll be really rare. And then the last unit I wanted to show you doesn't have any visuals yet, and in fact, at the moment, just looks like snagger skirmishers. And these are the half trolls. This unit is going to be insane, and in my testing so far, they've already been absolutely incredible. So if we bump it up to ×6 and send them on their merry way, they are going to be a javelin and two-handed axe unit, and they will be armor-piercing with both weapon types. At the minute, as I say, they're snagger skirmishers, but what you will see as soon as we charge some of these fools is that they, like any kind of expected large beast creature, because they will be actual half trolls, probably not fully half trolls in size, but something you will note when they charge into this warg line is, if they actually do, and the wargs don't have an absolute mare of a day about it. Oh, bugger, those are warg missiles. Run on, friends, run on. Bolg's champions, they'll charge us. Bolg. You'll also know that they've just been shot by a load of crossbow bolts and not a single one has gone down. But here they come into Bolg's champions. Axes at the ready. Slicing through. What you'll note there is that the wargs are being pushed back. And that is because this half-troll unit will have half-troll mass stat. Meaning their mass stat at the moment stands about 20 times that of a human person. At 25. And a standard human unit in the game has a mass stat of 1. Normal trolls have a mass stat of 100. And these half-trolls will have a mass stat of 25. Which just means that they will plunge deeper into the enemy lines than most other forces would. Now, I'm showing so much about them because when they're done, they're going to be Gundabad's standout unit. So I'm trying to create hype, if you will, for them already. Even though at the minute, as I say, they're just mad, overpowered goblins. But they have got some of the stats that we are thinking of. And they are at the moment stand at soldiers. They will start with 62 soldiers, 22 melee attack, a missile attack of 12. Their charge bonus is 12. Their mass stat is 25. And their defense is an armor stat of virtually nothing, but a very high defense skill. They will, however, have small shields and 3 hit points apiece. Most trolls, or in fact all trolls, I believe start with 4 hit points, and then it goes 5 and 6 for the elites. They're going to be skilled against mounts, they're going to be effective against armor, and they're going to frighten nearby enemy cavalry and infantry. But their description is to be done, and they have not been created yet. But anyway, those are the half-trolls. Also, you did see that right, their recruitment cost is 1350. That is likely to be boosted, but as I say, the stats are all being played around with. Nothing yet is set in stone. So do bear that in mind. But there's that much cooler warg in action. It just looks so much better, doesn't it? Kudos to Reforged for it, because it really is an improvement. But anyway, that's the developer diary. So that's everything that's been done and being done towards Gundabad and other changes. If you have any suggestions for Gundabad or any thoughts, do say them out loud now. Because as I say, the worst we can do is just say no. Although arguably the worst that we can do is just not reply, which will mean that we've said no. But there's so many suggestions on a daily basis, and we read them all, but we don't necessarily always reply. And I apologise for that, it's terribly bad mannered, but I do have to go to work. And then I don't wish to spend my evenings just replying to comments and suggestions and essays that we get from some people. So do bear with us. Do cut us a little bit of slack. But anyway, there we are. That is the developer diary. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're sticking with DaC. And until we speak again, dear friends, Navarne den Perimad Melonin, Kaira Alf and farewell.